Folks, this is way outside of what I normally do. Healthcare is an important issue to me. I don't want mine taken away, my right to make choices taken away from me. But what we're seeing in government today, I'm afraid, is just a symptom of a disease. There's several business books out that I like, and one written that I read fairly frequently is by a man named Stephen Covey. And he tells a story about a time he was allowed into an operating room and they were doing a quadruple bypass on an individual, and he was asking the doctor if once they did the bypass, if he was out of danger, the patient was out of danger. And the doctor said, no, what we're doing is just addressing the symptoms, and that's really all we can do. He said the problem, the disease, is a heart disease. It's his lifestyle and some number of other things that have caused all this plaque to build up, and as a result, we have to do this triple bypass. What we're trying to do here today, and what Tea Parties across this country are trying to do, and town hall meetings and people standing up and speaking out, is we're addressing the symptom. And that has to be done, or this country's going to die, just like an individual requiring a quadruple bypass is going to die. But can I tell you something? I saw a sign somebody was holding up, said that they have a Constitution is another document they haven't read. And you know what? That's true. We've gotten so far away from our Constitution that we see the results now. Abraham Lincoln said that the philosophy in the classroom in one generation is going to be the policy of government in the next. And that's true, folks. We're seeing the philosophy of class in the classroom from decades ago is now the policy of government in the next. Decades ago, we took prayer out of school. Decades ago, we took the Bible out of school. Decades ago, we took God out of school. Now, I believe in the separation of the church and state. I think that's important. I don't want the government telling me how I should worship God. I don't want the government involved in my church. I'm not the pastor of my church, but I don't want the government involved in my church. But I don't believe in the separation of God and government. And when we kick God out of our government, we're making decisions based on what we want and what we feel is right. It's called situational ethics. And there's no place for that in our country. You wonder why our country is going down the road it's going down now? It's because we kicked God out of our country. He's picked his hand up off of us and said, here you go, this is judgment. And folks, I'm going to tell you, we are going to suffer the consequences of that. Barack Obama is all for world government. You know what that means? That means that we don't have a sovereign nation. This country is going to die, and it's not because Barack Obama or other politicians. The funny thing about government of the people, by the people, and for the people is we get the fruits of who we voted in. And this is decades. I'm not saying that you're at fault or I'm at fault, but I'm going to tell you, this nation, the people of this nation, we're at fault. We got to stand up. But it's addressing the symptom. If we don't get God back in our schools, if we don't get God back in our government, if we don't get God back in our hearts, if we don't turn back to this document, we'll never turn back to the Constitution, and we're going to reap the rewards of it. The Bible says the wages of sin is death. That goes for an individual, it goes for the country. If we're so steeped in sin, this country is going to die. What's going to change it? The only way we're going to be effective in that is, number one, we got to have a personal relationship with God. And if we don't have that, there's no way he's going to listen to our prayers. The Bible says that God doesn't hear sinners. That's what we all are until we have a relationship with God. Now listen, I don't want to go past my 2 minutes, and this is very difficult to do in 2 minutes. But unless you have a personal relationship with God, the Bible says the wages of sin is death, and that death is the second death. God said the soul that sinneth, it shall die. That doesn't mean the physical death, folks. That means the death of our soul, and that means judgment and being cast forever into the lake of fire where we'll burn forever. There's no relief from the pain and torture if you can imagine being burned like that. That's where we're headed as individuals. I believe our country's headed that direction too. But God's provided a cure for not just the symptom, ladies and gentlemen, but for the disease. And that cure is Jesus Christ. He paid our sin debt for us. He died in our place. And all you have to do, the Bible says, is call out to him to save you, and he will. The Bible says, for whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. God's not a liar. He never has been. He warned us about taking God out of the government, and now we're paying the consequences. Folks, I can't warn you sternly enough. We have got to have an individual, personal relationship with God. If you lack that, when you die, you're going to be judged by him and sent to hell. It's not my judgment, folks. I'm just a messenger. All right? This country is going to go that direction. I implore you, The message that you're getting out about getting the right politicians in government, huge. It's important. But I'm going to tell you, we won't find the right politicians until we start getting God back into our hearts. Thank you.